Welcome to the Culminating Activity presentation. My name is Josiah Henderson. I teach high school level mathematics, including Integrated Math 1 and 1A and B, and Integrated Math 2A and B at Options for Youth in Carmichael, California. We're a public charter school. I finished my bachelor's in arts mathematics at Sacramento State University, Sacramento in 2016. And a year later, finished my single subject teaching credential for mathematics, also from Sac State. To summarize my inquiry for you and what you'll be seeing today, one, my inquiry question, what I tried with my students to pursue that inquiry question, the growth in my students' learning, growth in my own practice, and finally, my reflection on this whole process. And before we begin, I'd like to talk about the actual CSTP element that I chose for my inquiry. I chose element 5.4, which is using assessment data to establish learning goals and to plan, differentiate, and modify instruction. Based on this CSTP element and my inquiry question, I decided to create these two goals for student outcomes and my own teacher outcomes. So my student outcome was that by the certain date, February 10th, 80% of my students will be able to understand the concept of a function and use function notation. I also wanted them to understand that a function from one set called the domain to another set called the range assigns to each element of the domain exactly one element of the range, as measured by demonstrating improvement by at least 20% on a retake of our previous summative assessment. So I'm looking for at least 20% overall improvement from 80% of my students, judged on the same assessment. For myself, I created this goal that I will implement a digital badge leaderboard and at least one student pairing activity each week, as measured by my lesson plans. My inquiry question, based on CSTP element 5.4, is this: how will using the data from multiple modes of assessment inform my planning of differentiated review sessions to increase student learning? The rationale behind my inquiry question is this. I want to take student data generated by them in their work through an assessment. That data through multiple modes of assessments, not just one, but their traditional quizzes, computer-aided activities, targeted pairings and groupings that I set up and structure through class, and then daily student self-assessment. I'm taking that data and turning it into differentiated activities, targeting areas of need for student growth seen through examination of that data. And then those activities are then given to the students who are doing them individually and sometimes through targeted pairings and groupings, creating new data to start the process over in this cycle. So I created tried three different approaches with my students for this inquiry question. The first idea and plan that I implemented was the badge board. The rationale for this is that the data from my first deep data dive revealed that students who were generally more engaged in class with me or with each other did better on that assessment. So here's an image of the first unit that I did this for, Unit 6. I created the badge board as one way to promote engagement, participation, and create a sense of ownership among the students in the class. Also, the students have access to the badge board through Google Classroom at any time, so they can always log in and see their current standing for that unit. Also, worth pointing out, I wanted to create an even playing field for everybody and not only base this badge board on their academic assignments. I also had a dual goal here of creating engagement and participation with the group as a whole. So, in order to just spark engagement and use competition to spark that engagement, I added these first four badges: a great communicator, which is simply joining the Remind group so that they could receive and send text to me for class. And then, secondly, the Risk Taker Award, which is promoting asking questions, trying to engage in class, and taking that risk to engage. And then Committed, 1 week of perfect attendance. And then after that, the Scribe Award was for taking notes each day. So I was hoping to promote engagement among all students and give everyone a chance to get started and not have an empty board by having those four, and then also including every assignment that we did afterwards. The next idea that I tried with my students was consistent group and or paired activities. And when I say group, I mean small group. So in my inquiry, in my goal for myself, I did say 1 weekly group or paired activity. But after the first week, I did up that to 2. So here I'm stating that I began structuring class with 2 student group or paired activities each week. I was purposefully matching previously active students with students who were less likely to engage. A few examples of these some of these activities I created. I was relying on Google Slides and really Microsoft PowerPoint to create activities that I could give to students and they could work on together in real time, but of course through distance learning. And also, it provides me with their data based on working with them, a small group, a pair, or sometimes on their own. Also, in the bottom left, that's the beginning of a Google Jamboard, which allows the students to not only type in work to each other and to me, but then also to draw on the screen. So it's a learning curve for everybody, in myself included, to draw onto the Jamboard. However, it does increase engagement with the students with the content. Um, so this way, I am getting all my students to work together on different activities that I can create and keep consistent across the board, as opposed to the curriculum provided quizzes that we were using prior to these. Now, to expand a little bit on some of these activities, the differentiation offered in them. Here's one activity I created for reflections in the coordinate plane. You can see the student types in their name and then the names of their partners. A link provided there takes them to the module in GeoGebra that allows the students to quickly do different reflections. They are to perform the reflections using GeoGebra, and back in their online worksheet or activity sheet, they can keep track of the points and answer a few questions together as a small group, as a triad. When the whole class was done, then we come back together as a group, and through questions, I helped the kids formalize what they were finding about each different reflection, and we compiled those together to summarize our results for that day. Another example that I wanted to highlight here was in order to promote engagement, I had the students, not every time, but a lot of the times, a lot of the activities, simply ask each other as like an icebreaker in the beginning about non-academic questions about each other, just to spark conversation and lower that affective filter, and thereby get the ball rolling, so to speak, on working on the actual content together. And lastly, when I was trying with my students to pursue this inquiry question, My third item is increased data collection sources. So, using the data from all these new paired activities and differentiated activities, as opposed to only the existing quiz data that I was using prior to this from our provided curriculum from the school. So, for growth in my students' learning, here we have the data from one group of students in this Math 1 class conducted in December of 2021. And then later in February, after implementing my badge board and twice weekly structured group activities, we have data on the right. After implementing 2 group activities per week, badge board, and increased data analysis. Now, when we pick apart what we're seeing here, I wanted to focus on students who were consistent within the group. It should be said that our school has a fairly high turnover rate. So students are joining throughout the entire year and sometimes leaving throughout the entire year too. So I do have some students who joined in spring who weren't here in the fall, and vice versa. So I'm looking mostly at the data from the group of students who were there for both administrations of this assessment. So when we focus on Anaya and Levi and Savannah, I do have growth to show 75 to 100% for Anaya, 75 to 86% the second administration for Levi, and then Savannah grew from 25% the first time to 100%. And also, it's worth pointing out here that there's some decline also. So I noticed the second administration that Anthony dropped from a 50% the first time, which is already an indicator of a need for help on this topic, but he went down to 14%. So doing this inquiry and examining these datas the way we did here did not only show me a lot of positives come out from the social work I was trying to promote among the students using the content of the class, but it also did reveal that some students, a small core group of students, Anthony, we see his data there. Xavier, you can see his data on the right side. There's a small core group of students who have been hesitant to engage with small groups and pairs. And I found this out because I started pushing it so hard and using it so regularly. So even though I did regularize it and formalize it on a weekly basis, there's still been some hesitation, some pushback. But it's also created an avenue for conversation and some targeted assistance from me, special sessions with Anthony and with Xavier and with Brooke also, who I've been working with since then, since this data has revealed this need and this fear, I think, in working together in groups. Growth in my practice, implementing the badge board and the consistent group activities has shown itself effective in increasing student performance, but also classroom cohesion and community. In the fall, I had very little participation in class, and now my class regularly answers questions during class time and works together during group activities. The process has proven effective with a core group of students who have responded well to working socially and revealed a need in a separate group of students who are more hesitant to work socially within the group. Because of my analysis and tracking of the data, this need was revealed and opened a better line of communication between me and these students and their parents. So my reflection on this process is that overall, the process has been very positive for me and the Math 1 class. I'm using data in a concerted way to look for areas of need or strength and structuring future lessons and activities based on these needs. By incorporating group and paired activities into the differentiated lessons that I'm creating based on this data, I have seen both student engagement and achievement increase. I am using these activities as an assessments themselves and reincorporating the data I receive back into the system for future lessons. And doing this has also helped reveal new needs within my class. And although I have had demonstrable success with many students, I see more clearly now a need for better social and interpersonal support for another small core group of students, those who have been backing away from this group work. Continued, the paired and group assignments I've been experimenting with will allow for more room for expression from the students, a differentiated experience for all students, and allows me more assessment data than strictly using our online curriculum. Setting goals for myself and meeting with my mentor, getting feedback from our instructor, and the accountability on these goals has proven to aid in my own development, keep to help keeping me reflecting on my practice and looking for ways to improve my practice. The best part of year one induction experience, I would say, has been working with my mentor, Allison, weekly. Her advice, the goal setting, and the accountability all together, um, for me, has been a really positive structure. I am choosing this aspect of the induction experience as the best part of the program thus far because the collaboration and Allison's advice help with keeping my planning of instruction fresh and more useful and effective. Regular feedback and accountability that I'm having with her help keep me focused on the goal of trying harder, not letting myself stagnate, and looking for new angles and best practices to further hone my work with my students. Thank you for your time and for watching my presentation.